Hi everyone, welcome back to Ways of the World, a brief global history with sources. And we're going to start our study of cultural transformations in religion and science with Globalization of Christianity. So let's start with the Virgin of Guadalupe. So according to Mexican tradition, a dark-skinned Virgin Mary appeared to an indigenous peasant named Juan Diego in 1531, an apparition that's reflected in this Mexican painting from 1720. Now, belief in the Virgin of Guadalupe represented the incorporation of European Catholicism into the emerging culture and identity of Mexico. I want you to think about this Mexican painting as an example of cultural syncretism. Think about the specific elements in the painting that would support that. The representation of Jesus, the angels, and the European woman at the bottom right indicate the Christian religious traditions from Eurasia, and the Native American woman holding the emblem of the eagle with the snake in its mouth, which is based on an Aztec myth, represents the American continent. All right, Western Christendom fragmented, the Protestant Reformation. Now, the Protestant Reformation began in 1517 when Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses asking for a debate about ecclesiastical abuses. Now, Luther's was one of many criticisms of the Roman Catholic Church, and his protests were more deeply grounded in theological differences. And he questioned the special role of the clerical hierarchy, including that of the Pope. And Luther's ideas provoked a massive schism in the Catholic Christendom. It was fed on political, economic, and social tension, not just religious differences. And some monarchs even used Luther and his ideas to justify independence from the papacy. And that gave a new religious legitimacy to the middle class. And commoners were attracted to these new religious ideas as a tool for protest against the whole social order. Many women were attracted to Protestantism, but the Reformation didn't give them a greater role in church or society. Protestants ended the veneration of Mary and other female saints. They closed convents, which had given some women an alternative to marriage. And only Quakers among the Protestants gave women an official role in their churches. There is some increase in education of women because of the emphasis on being able to read the Bible, but there's little opportunity to use it because of the emphasis on women and their roles as wives and mothers. Now, the recently invented printing press helped the Reformation and its ideas spread quickly. And as the Reformation spread, it splintered into an array of competing Protestant churches. Now, these religious differences made Europe's fractured political system even more volatile. From 1562 to 1598, there are the French Wars of Religion, the Catholics versus the Huguenots. And from 1618 to 1648 is the 30 Years' War. Now, the Protestant Reformation provoked a Catholic counter-reformation. The Council of Trent, which met off and on from 1545 to 1563, clarified Catholic doctrine and practices. They corrected the abuses and corruption that the Protestants had protested. And there's a new emphasis on education and the supervision of priests, a crackdown on dissidents, new attention given to individual spirituality and piety, and there's a new religious order, or new religious orders, for example, the Society of Jesus, known as the Jesuits, who are committed to renewal and expansion of the Catholic faith. And the Reformation encouraged skepticism toward authority and tradition that fostered religious individualism, and in the following centuries, the Protestant habit of independent thinking led to skepticism about all conservative religion. All right, the Protestant Reformation. This is an engraving of Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Castle Church in 1517, thus launching the Protestant Reformation. So, what does the image support about the attitude of the artist toward the Lutheran Reformation? Well, the image, like I said, shows Martin Luther famously nailing his 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg in 1517. Now, during this spectacle, he's surrounded by many inquisitive people, while the portly friar behind him unsurprisingly expresses some shock. Now, other than that friar, however, no immensely negative depictions are shown, leading the viewer to believe that the artist was at least ambivalent to, if not in favor of, Luther's criticisms of the Catholic Church. Okay, let's talk about the Reformation Europe in the 16th century. So the rise of Protestantism added yet another set of religious divisions, both within and between states, the whole world of Christendom, which is already sharply divided between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. So what parts of Western Europe were predominantly Protestant by the end of the 16th century? Which regions remained predominantly Catholic? Well, in general terms, Protestantism was entrenched in Northern Europe, except for Ireland, and Catholicism was entrenched in Southern Europe and Ireland. Now, if you look at this map, think about the map from chapter 13, the European colonial empires in the Americas. Did Catholic or Protestant states control the largest American colonies? The largest American colonies were controlled by Catholic states, particularly Spain and Portugal. Now, according to the evidence in the map, what impact did the spread of Protestantism have on European state building? Now, outside of the divided Holy Roman Empire, Christianity, be it Catholic or Protestant, provided one piece of an ideology justifying the consolidation of rule under a centralized state. All right, this is the globalization of Christianity. Now, the growing Christian presence in Asia, Africa, and especially the Americas, combined with older centers of that faith, gave the religion derived from Jesus a global dimension during the early modern era. So where did Protestants establish overseas colonies? Protestant colonies were primarily located along North America's Atlantic coast by the British and in South Africa by the Dutch. Now, did the Catholic, Protestant, or Russian Orthodox Church have the most success in establishing itself as a global faith during the early modern period? And how might you explain the variations among those? Well, the Catholics expanded furthest in this period. Spain and Portugal, the most dominant seafaring and colonial states in the early modern Europe, were Catholic, and Catholicism was the more missionizing type of Christianity during this time period. Even so, the Protestant British and Dutch, who would come to dominate colonial enterprises after 1700, were starting to make Protestantism felt globally, and the reach of the Russian Orthodox Church had expanded substantially throughout northern Asia. Okay, all right, Christianity outward bound. Now, Christianity motivated and benefited from European expansion. Spaniards and Portuguese saw overseas expansion as a continuation of that crusading tradition from the Middle Ages. Explorers combined religious and material interests. Imperialism made the globalization of Christianity possible. Settlers and traders brought their religion with them. Missionaries, mostly Catholic, actively spread Christianity. Missionaries were most successful in Spanish America and the Philippines. There's an overwhelming European presence, and yet an absence of prior literate world religions. All right, conversion and adaptation in Spanish America. Well, the process of population collapse, conquest, and resettlement made by Native Americans receptive to the conquering religion, and by 1700 most had been baptized and identified as Christian. Now, the religious role of women changed. There's no corresponding religious figures in the Catholic Church. Convents were only for Spanish women. Europeans claimed exclusive religious truth. It tried to destroy traditional religions instead of accommodating them. But there is the occasional campaigns of destruction against the old religions and some overt resistance movements. There's also the blending of two religious traditions, and that's a little bit more common. Local gods, called huacas, remain influential. The immigrant Christianity took on patterns of pre-Christian life. Christian saints took on functions of pre-colonial gods. And the leader of the church staff, a fiscal, was a prestigious native who carried on the role of of earlier religious specialists. And many rituals survived, often with some Christian influence. All right, so Andean Christianity. Now, religious syncretism in the Andes emerged during the early modern era, but continues to play an important role in the religious life of the region today. This 2016 image shows Peruvians participating in a religious procession that combines Incan mountain worship with Catholic traditions in a vibrant festival that attracts thousands of celebrants each year. So how does this image display a difference between European Christianity and Christianity in South America? Over nearly 1,500 years, Catholic Christianity took on distinctly European forms, but when it reached the Americas, it was amalgamated to existing ritual. For example, in this image, those performing the Indian mountain ritual in native dress process with the Christian cross up the mountain. All right, an Asian comparison, China and the Jesuits. Now, Christianity reached China in the powerful, prosperous Ming and Qing dynasties. And here it's called for a different missionary strategy. They needed government permission for operation. So the Jesuits in China especially targeted the official Chinese elite. There's no mass conversion in China. Jesuits were appreciated for scientific, geographical, technological, and cartographical skills. There are some scholars and officials that converted, and the missionary efforts gained some 200 to 300,000 converts, but over a 250-year period. The missionaries didn't offer much that the Chinese needed or really wanted. Christianity was unappealing as an all-or-nothing religion that would call for rejection of a lot of Chinese culture. In the early 18th century, the papacy and other missionary orders opposed Jesuit accommodation policy, respecting Chinese culture, pointing out parallels between the religions. And many missionaries were expelled or lost favor at court after the Pope took a hardline approach to expanding Christianity and missionary efforts. Some have even seen this as an uncivilized act due to the alliance with the Qing, miracle workers versus men of science and industry, cannibals and the idea of Holy Communion, subversive for a meeting in secret, or even potential spies. And those would be, from the maps. All right, Jesuits in China. In this 15th century Dutch engraving, 2 Jesuit missionaries hold a map of China. Their map-making skills were among the reasons that the Jesuits were initially welcomed among the educated elite in China. Identify the aspects of the painting that demonstrate a European point of view. The European dress of the figure at right, along with the Christian symbolism of the heavenly sky, the Greek columns, and the Latin script, that's all evidence of a European point of view or viewpoint of the image. This concludes our study of Globalization of Christianity. I will see you guys next time.